It is now 5:08, and coming up next on Eyewitness News, fans of Paul McCartney are counting the minutes until tonight's concert at the Palace. It's been a long time between concerts, but tonight, former Beatle Paul McCartney plays his first of 2 sold-out concerts at the Palace. TV2's Nancy McCauley says his fans have been waiting a long time to see the music legend who influenced their lives.
1964, the Fab Four, the Beatles, found their plane surrounded by screaming Beatlemaniacs who declared their concert at Olympia the biggest event to play Detroit. 26 years later, Paul McCartney and his band return with Beatle favorites and Paul's new songs. And once again, it's the hottest ticket in town.
By the requests that we've had, maybe because of the scarcity of the tickets, from anybody who's anybody in the city and a lot of people even from outside other places in the country who wanted to just fly in just for one night of Paul McCartney. I don't think we've had anything to duplicate this before.
You can probably see the big speaker and several lights, but that's all of the stage I can show you. Security here is very tight. The Palace is sealed off until 6:30, just before showtime.
We closed the building, basically, to everyone, and that even includes employees. Backstage, it will be barren. I mean, no one is going to have access back there at all.
Got 2 together. How about that?
Lois Harmon of Clarkston was among the lucky few to get a ticket to tonight's sold-out concert. Linda Terrace of Mount Clement has been counting the minutes until the show.
Oh, I'm super excited. Are you kidding? You asked me about selling my tickets? No, they're not worth whatever.
Who would have thought 25 years ago that I would be going to see Paul McCartney? I can remember watching him on the Ed Sullivan Show. It was just wonderful.
Paul, they love you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. At the Palace, Nancy McCauley, TV2 Eyewitness News.
Should be a terrific concert. A bit of inside trivia for you McCartney fans. It seems the McCartneys are health conscious. They are catering all vegetarian food for themselves and their crew.
From Michigan's #1 news station, this is Channel 7's 6 o'clock Action News with Rich Fisher, Doris Biscoe, and Detroit's First News team.
He's known as the royalty of rock and roll, a hero to a generation of music lovers, and he's here to entertain us. Channel 7 News has exclusive pictures of Paul McCartney's arrival in the Detroit area. Channel 7's Dave Gilbert is at the Palace of Auburn Hills with the scoop on the hottest concert of the year. He has more in this live report. Dave?
Doris, that's for sure. This has got to be one of the hottest concerts of the year. You know, I covered Michael Jackson when he was here at the Motor City and thought there was a lot of excitement surrounding that concert. But as you can see, it seems like there's even more excitement for Paul McCartney because, after all, it isn't every day you actually get to see and hear a Beatle live and in concert. A lot of these people arrived here hours ago. Some don't even have tickets, but they just want to be part of the event. Now, about an hour and a half ago, Paul McCartney did fly into the Motor City, and we were the only ones there to capture it on tape. Here's a look at what happened. He arrived in a private jet at Oakland Pontiac Airport around 4:30 this afternoon. Paul, his wife Linda, and other family members got right into a limo. His own private security force and local police kept us back, preventing an interview, but not from getting these exclusive pictures. He appears in very good spirits, waving at airport employees who waited hours to get a glimpse of a real live Beatle.
Paul McCartney, he's a legend. He's just a legend, and we're real happy to have him.
It was neat to see him. It really was, to see him as closely as we did. It was a great thrill.
He threw me a kiss. I've seen them since I was in 2nd grade. In fact, we played it at recess. I was head painter for the Beatles.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see you paint here this time.
No, I was at the window giving them peace signs like that. And
So it really brings back a lot of memories seeing him like that?
yeah, it makes me feel old, too.
Lucky people who have tickets for tonight's concert are going to hear Paul play the Beatles music live for the first time in 20 years. After the Beatles broke up, Paul basically played his own songs in concert. But now at 47, he doesn't mind looking back at yesterday. He may be 47, but everybody here agrees he sure can play. Paul McCartney, the concert starts at 8 o'clock tonight, and of course, we'll have a report at 11 o'clock. Live from the Palace, I'm Dave Gilbert. Back to you.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. If you don't have tickets to the McCartney concert, sorry, both shows are sold out.
Good evening, everybody. A different kind of a lead story this evening. It is about, well, a kid who was hungry and poor, had a baby face and beautiful big eyes. But he was a grunt from the tough working class section of Liverpool, England, who loved and idolized rock and roll and loved and kid another kid from Tupelo, Mississippi. The kid from Liverpool became a thing called a Beatle, and they changed the world before their king, that cat named Elvis, left it, the one from Mississippi. Now Paul McCartney is pushing half a century, and tonight, he jammed at a place called the Palace. Was it sold out? Yeah. More than 22,000 people packing the Palace tonight to hear McCartney sing the songs of his youth, their youth, to relive the glorious moments of the Beatles, that magic, and witness the magic of McCartney's latest lyrics. Channel 7's Dave Gilbert was one of the lucky ones in that big crowd, and David got a chance to see and hear one of his heroes. David joins us now from the Palace in this live-action camera report. David?
Bill, as you can see from all the people behind me, no one here is going home feeling they didn't get their money's worth. As my daughter would say, it was an awesome concert. It was just an incredible show. Paul McCartney, bring it back to the 60s. It's an incredible multimedia show. The theme of this latest concert, yesterday and today. For the first time since the Beatles' breakup, Motor City fans are hearing Paul get back to the 60s. And of course, McCartney's rocking and running figure eights around the Palace with his new stuff.
If you weren't looking, if you were just listening, it was like seeing the Beatles. It was so authentic.
This is the concert of a lifetime, say most here tonight. Seeing the Beatle in the flesh strumming his left-handed bass, for some, brings back a lot of happy 60s memories.
Oh, yeah. All the songs have memories. And you remember. It's like it's all there again.
This is the Beatles and more. Paul McCartney, this is it to me. This is the ultimate.
Although all the seats here are reserved, people started arriving hours before tonight's show, basically because they're so excited.
We were pumped. We were ready.
I've been waiting for 13 years. I saw him in '76, and I've been waiting for the day.
As I said at the beginning, it was an awesome show. I wish I could show you all the songs, but the promoters would not let it be tonight. We can only show one song, and you should have been here. The crowd obviously having a good time, and he's got another show tomorrow night, but if you don't have tickets, forget about it. It's sold out. Live from the Palace with Beatles fans, I'm Dave Gilbert.
Okay, David. I know it's a change of pace, but it was kind of a nice change of pace because Paul McCartney and the Beatles, I think, have, and I hope you agree, have a tremendous impact on the world and people. Tonight's concert, by the way, brings back some powerful memories for one local guy, a guy who used to work with the WKNR. That was October '69. The news came crackling over the airways of KNR. Paul McCartney was dead. The man at the microphone was Russ Gibb, a weekend DJ broadcasting from Keener. And the rumor spread fast, and Russ Gibb became known around the world as the man who tried to bury Paul McCartney before he was supposed to be buried. Tonight, more than 21 years later, Gibb is surprised by all the attention and still keeps his sense of humor.
I'm amused that 21 years later, they're still asking me questions about it. Now, ask me whether or not I think he's alive.
Do you think he's alive?
No. It's still a double, but the real Paul is alive, and he's teaching music in Dearborn High in Dearborn, Michigan. So I know Paul is alive.
Guess who's a teacher out in Dearborn? Russ Gibb. Russ is hoping he'll finally have a chance to meet McCartney face to face after all these years. And I'll tell you something, Russ. So would I. Diana? Much more coming up tonight. Paul McCartney and his music rolling into town, making most of us believe the frenzy, the excitement, the magic of the legendary Beatles. And we'll show you and Jerry with Detroit's most accurate forecast. We're working him overtime this week. Finally, each of us, every human being, begins the symphony of life as a child. We mature, grow old, grow even older. But always still inside is the child. Well, as a boy, he and 3 other boys impacted Earth like some magical comet from a distant galaxy. And tonight, the man and child jam Detroit probably for the last time. Paul McCartney, the man, the artist, and the child inside, playing his art for all the children. A man of the ages? Perhaps not, but surely an artist for people of all ages. Thank you, Mr. McCartney. Have a pleasant, peaceful evening. Nightline is next. See you tomorrow at 5. Good night, Diana.
Good night, Bill. Good night, everyone, and thanks so much for looking in.
Came represented all age groups. Did they come to hear Beatles music or what Paul McCartney is doing today?
I've been a Beatles fan since about 7th grade. I'm only 26, but to me the music of the 60s has always been the best.
I was too young for the Beatles, and now I guess I'm just the right age for Paul McCartney.
There were those who recently got acquainted with McCartney, and then the ones who remember when it all started.
I can remember Ed Sullivan, their first appearance. That was great.
My time. Knowing the audience wanted the memories, McCartney's show was heavily Beatles music. The press, however, only got a taste of the first song. McCartney assembled first-rate musicians to work with him on tour. There's no doubt there's a single star. There was a moment of nostalgia honoring John, Ringo, and George when they opened the evening with the film. But the rest of the night belonged to Paul, and the audience loved it. This year we've seen a lot of very big concerts, including the Stones, but the magic of McCartney really has no comparison. He represents to us an awful lot of our history, and he's one of the few stars who really deserves the label legend, and everyone around me would attest to that. It was a great show. He'll be back tomorrow and do it again. Back to you, Carmen.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Beatlemania doesn't stop here. McCartney will play the Palace again, as Sylvia told us, tomorrow night. He'll also hold a news conference, and News 4 Sylvia Glover will be there. She'll have the latest tomorrow at 5 on Newsbeat.
I think a lot of people are going to get to a real Beatles concert because who knows if a reunion will ever happen with the remaining 3 or not. And I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed here. The figure of 8.
While Beatlemania is a big reason fans are here, others are attracted to the new Paul McCartney. After all, many of these fans weren't even born when McCartney and the Beatles were making rock music history in the 60s.
We like his new stuff.
That's it, huh?
Yeah, and we all and we like the Beatles.
Yeah. But you weren't around when the Beatles were making history.
I know, we like him anyway.
Yeah, we better take good care of each other. Avoid slipping back off the street now. Get my father in a figure of 8. Oh, sing it to me, children. To love one another than to go for a walk in the dark. Yeah, is it better to love than to give it to hate? Yeah.
No doubt McCartney's appearance here is creating lifelong memories for a lot of people, young and old alike. And of course, another 20,000 plus people will be here again tomorrow night to see McCartney's second concert. Reporting live from the Palace at Auburn Hills, Mike Redford, TV2 Eyewitness News.
And Mike, we understand McCartney's world tour is closing drawing to a close anyway with these concerts, right?
Pretty much, Dana. It's got about 6 more weeks to go. It started in Oslo, Norway on September 25th. It'll finish up in Tokyo, Japan, mid-March, so it is drawing to a close.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mike. The band on tour is the first full-time band McCartney has assembled since Paul McCartney and the Wings broke up in 1979.
A lot of memories out there.
He says he's reviving his career, too,
Those kids will never know how much they owe to Ed Sullivan.
It was something very much like Beatlemania last night at the Palace. It was a great show, and no doubt it will be something much the same there again tonight. The reason, of course, Paul McCartney is electrifying the 22,000-plus concert goers who came to see the, well, one half, really, of one of the best songwriting teams ever. All told, McCartney and his band played 31 songs, many of them old Beatles favorites, and others still more recent McCartney tunes. Paul and his current band will take the stage once again tonight at the Palace. Boy, it was a super show.
You loved it, huh?
I did.
It was a serious audience last night, really. Seriously good, seriously fab, seriously duty.
Superstar Paul McCartney talks to Detroit. And Metro Detroit motorists fight with Mother Nature as winter makes a comeback. Good afternoon, I'm Hugh Perkins.
And I'm Sherry Margolis.
And here's your first look at what's happening today, Friday, February 2nd, 1990.
We'll have more on the weather in a moment, but first, for the first time since his arrival in the Motor City, former Beatle Paul McCartney today met with the media. McCartney played to a sold-out crowd at the Palace last night, and he'll do the same tonight. TV2's Mike Redford, lucky guy, is live at the Palace. Mike?
It's almost good enough like having a ticket to the concert, I tell you, Sherry. Certainly an informative and entertaining 20 minutes with Paul McCartney, I can tell you that. He was certainly exciting, certainly having a pretty good time. He loved the Palace, he loves Detroit. He touched on a variety of subjects during that 20 minutes, from talk of the current world tour, of course, to talk of how Detroit and Motown were important roots for his beginnings in rock music. As for a possible reunion with the ex-Beatles still around, George Harrison and Ringo Starr, McCartney says, quote, yes, that could be in the cards someday, unquote. Here's an excerpt of what McCartney had to say just a little while ago.
Happening. It was like the English beat boom and the black Motown boom. It was great. So we were good mates, you know, like Diana Ross, Supremes, and then we were kind of contemporaries happening together. A reunion as such is out of the question because John's not with us, you know. They would have to, the only reunion you could have had would have been with John. But the thing we're doing on this tour is mentioning the environment issues a lot. I mean, I'm no expert, but I've got 4 kids, as I said, you know. And you see things like this Exxon spill and, you know, how well they cleaned up. Joke. When I was 20, or whatever it was when I wrote it, I was 20-year-old singing, I'm not half the man I used to be. Which was like, you know, fairly presumptuous for a 20-year-old. Now, at 47, it means something.
That's the song Figure of Eight from McCartney's latest album. It also happens to be the first song that McCartney performed here last night. I should also say you'll be happy to know that this will very likely not be McCartney's last world tour. At the ripe old age of 47, McCartney saying today he believes there's life after 50. He plans on touring at least until then. Reporting live from the Palace, Mike Redford, TV2, First News.
Well, that's good news, Mike. You know, for a megastar, he seems awfully down to earth. Seem like a nice guy to you?
Very, very down to earth. In fact, environmental issues were something that is his cause, something he talked about, and he hoped that in addition to playing music and having people enjoy his music, they're hoping they really listen to what he has to say about environmental issues as well.
Okay. And I hope you got the autograph for me, too. Thank you.
I'm going to go back in and see if I can catch it.
Okay, thanks. And you'll hear more on what Paul McCartney had to say tonight at 6.
Reunion with the ex-Beatle members still around, George Harrison and Ringo Starr. Talk of touring again after this tour is over, and talk of Detroit, of course. As McCartney arrived in the room, he immediately talked of Detroit, how his music was inspired in part by Motown.
It was like the English beat boom and the black Motown boom. It was great. So we were good mates, you know, like Diana Ross, Supremes, and then we were kind of contemporaries happening together.
He also says he was impressed by local fans, saying they're certainly more boisterous than those in Europe.
It was a serious audience last night, really. Seriously good, seriously fab, seriously duty.
As for his musical selections on tour, McCartney and his band are playing 17 Beatle tunes he almost omitted during his last world tour with the Wings in 1976. As to why he's playing a lot of Beatles on this tour?
Now it feels really kind of a natural to now get back to those songs. It's a question of either getting back to those songs or ignoring them for the rest of my life.
And does that mean a reunion of sorts with the ex-Beatle members still around is possible?
You know, we might easily get together. There's a couple of projects that are possible now that we've solved our business differences.
That's certainly good news for McCartney fans, knowing that this will very likely not be his last tour, nor his last appearance in Detroit, we hope. As to what McCartney will do when this current tour ends in mid-March, he says a lot of rest and a lot of writing. Reporting live in the Palace in Auburn Hills, Mike Redford, TV2 Eyewitness News.
And Beatles fans are thrilled with the possibility that the remaining Beatles might get back together. Mike, did he say what his favorite songs of all those he's written are?
Yeah, he mentioned two today, both Beatles tunes, of course. One was Here, There, and Everywhere. The other was Yesterday, particularly the lyric from Yesterday, I'm not half the man I used to be. He says he can relate a lot more to that song now that he's reaching 50. He's actually 47.
Okay. He's had some tough times that he's come through, too.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mike. Mike Redford reporting live from the Palace, where the concert takes place again tonight. The band currently on tour is the first full-time group McCartney has assembled since Wings broke up in 1979.
I'm Mort Krim.
I'm Kermit Herlin.
These are the stories breaking tonight.
Beatle maniacs are in heaven today. 20,000 of them screamed and yelled and sang along with Paul McCartney last night at the Palace. It was an event fans had waited for more than 14 years. Well, the one known as the Cute Beatle held a news conference today. In his heavy Cockney accent, he told reporters how he feels about playing Motown again.
It's groovy, man. It's great. I love it here, you know.
Well, tonight screams of I love Paul. You can lip sync this if you want more. Tonight, screams of I love Paul will probably be heard by today's teeny boppers as well as yesterday's.
Well, because of the Beatlemania, we almost named this program News Beatle. In Sports Beatle today, Bernie Smilovich shows us what happens when a guy gets hung out to dry, and the Red Wings are getting ready to take on Toronto's powerhouse team at Joe Louis. But first, some free agents are on the market today, and Bernie has their names.
Yeah, three of them are sitting right here.
Paul McCartney's magic is mesmerizing the metro area today. 20,000 fans packed the Palace last night to hear the ex-Beatle, and according to those who were there, it was great. McCartney played the old and the new, thrilling the crowd with Beatle tunes and impressing them with cuts off his latest album.
You got me running in a bigger bag. Don't know what's coming on, gonna find your leg.
A lot of reporters around town were hoping for the luck of the draw today because Paul McCartney held a news conference out in Auburn Hills there, and we didn't get to go, but Sylvia Glover did, and she's standing by now out at the parking lot in the Palace, it looks like. At least it's not snowing out there. Sylvia?
That's right, Emery, better than last night, and this is the best part of my job. I got to the news conference. I was 15 feet away from Paul McCartney. He talked about a lot of things today. He told us that he was performing Beatles music for the first time live, some of it, and loving it. He said that he probably will play with George and Ringo, but don't call it a reunion. He also said that his next project will be writing serious music for the Liverpool Symphony. And he also told us he loved playing the Palace.
We got
Much of the show was Beatles music. He answered the press today about why it took so long to do the old material.
When the Beatles broke up, it was kind of a little bit difficult. It was a bit like a divorce. And you didn't really want to do anything associated with the ex-wife kind of thing. You know, you didn't want to do her material.
An inspiration to the Beatles was Motown.
Well, it was such a period. And it kind of happened alongside us happening. It was like the English beat boom and the black Motown boom. It was great. So we were good mates.
McCartney was thrilled to see so many young people in the audience along with his contemporaries. He attributes it to a return to the 60s.
I think it's very exciting. To me, it seems like the 60s kicking in. That's my point of view on it. It's all the stuff that was said in the 60s: peace, love, democracy, freedom.
He talked a lot about the environment and his concern for the future. A lot of what we saw today was a concerned parent, along with a very youthful ex-Beatle. He says he feels like 27 instead of 47. He's very relaxed with who he is. He's finally dealing with the past, very comfortable with it. He's also anxious to prove that there is a future and there's a life after Beatles. Back to you, Emery and Margie.
All right, thanks, Sylvia. Boy, am I jealous.
I know.
Thanks.
With Star Notes, Sylvia Glover, News 4 Detroit.
Great. And from the beetle to the groundhog. You wouldn't know it by looking outside right now, but yes, the world's most famous groundhog says spring is just around the corner.
Good evening, everybody. Paul McCartney is more than just an incredibly talented musician. He's really kind of a phenomenon. His music touches people deep, deep inside where it does make a difference. And he did it again tonight at the Palace of Auburn Hills, just like he has done for more than a quarter of a century. Tomorrow, McCartney leaves Detroit, but his fans wish he'd stay and never leave.
Better to love than to give it away. Yeah, we better take good care of each other. Avoid slipping back off the street now. Instead of my mind, better start in a bigger way.
They were 50 and 15. This is McCartney's second and last show in Detroit on this concert tour. The Palace was packed. 22,000 people having the time of their lives. McCartney playing plenty of new songs, sounds in his show, but there are old ones as well, including some that he's never played on his tours before. Today, reporters had a rare opportunity to talk with Paul McCartney about the old songs and how he's changed since he wrote them.
With the Beatles, we'd given up touring, like Sgt. Pepper and Hey Jude, so I've never played them live before till this tour. It's a question of either getting back to those songs or ignoring them for the rest of my life. So it just felt good, the timing just felt good, and as I say, some of them I haven't actually done before, and I didn't realize that till we were rehearsing with the band. I thought, this feels great, Sgt. Pepper. I mean, why is this so great? And someone reminded me, they said, you've never done it. You know, it's like a new song to me.
Why did it take 20 years for you to come back out and finally play the classic Beatles songs?
Have you ever been in a lawsuit? I was in one for the last 20 years, you know. It just took forever. What happens is you get your advisors and they get theirs. And then lawyers, I think, are trained to keep things like that going. It's the first rule in law school, you know, keep it going.
Does yesterday mean something different to you now that you're 47
Yes, it
when you
sure
wrote it?
does, yeah. When I was 20, or whatever it was when I wrote it, I was 20-year-old singing, I'm not half the man I used to be. Right. Which was like, you know, fairly presumptuous for a 20-year-old. Now, at 47, it means something.
On his first tour in America, the teenage girls just went crazy for him. He had his great, big, beautiful eyes and a baby face, and he was cute. But now that he's older now, Paul McCartney, his wife Linda, and the rest of the band are staying at the Townsend Hotel in Birmingham. You saw the weather this morning. Well, some of the people stood out in that stuff for hours, just waiting for a chance to see Paul for a second or two. When his limo finally left, small crowds surrounded the car, just hoping for a peek of a man that they adore. those few seconds made some people feel like they were 16 again. A couple of teenagers with stars and a couple of middle-aged women with tears in their eyes. Paul McCartney has made a difference, and I'm going to have a couple of thoughts on that at the end of this newscast, and he'll have a couple more thoughts to express as well. Diana?
Well, people consider themselves lucky just to see Paul McCartney in concert once. Channel 7's Dave Gilbert has now seen him twice. He has more on tonight's show at the Palace in this live action camera report. Lucky Dave.
Well, Diane, it's a tough job that someone's got to do it. It's been a great experience seeing Paul McCartney twice. The fans loved it, and let's go right to the tape right now.
Well, you got me dancing in a figure eight.
It's not all tears and screams like it was in '64. At Beatle Paul's 1990 concert, it's more like shrieks of astonishment and sighs of contentment. Most Motor City fans here have waited a lifetime to see and hear McCartney, and they're savoring every moment.
We came from northern Michigan. This is a thrill of a lifetime for me. I can't believe it.
A bit of nostalgia, a bit of the way it used to be and the way it is now.
What's clear at tonight's concert, McCartney the man and his music spans generations. The fans here include middle-aged teeny boppers who were definitely influenced by the Beatles in the 60s, to their kids, 1990s teeny boppers.
Some people say Paul is old and he's this and that, but it's not true. Everyone knows here Paul is the best.
So you wish you were part of the 60s?
Yeah, but I don't want to be that old.
For many fans here, this is the first and possibly the last time they'll ever see Paul McCartney live. So they have to get a souvenir of this big night.
How often do you see a man that's been that's a legend in his own time, really?
They were broken up by the time I was born, but still, I love them.
I got to tell you, it brings back a lot of memories for everyone. I remember back when I was a sophomore in 1964, and as soon as he went on the Ed Sullivan Show, the next day all of us in high school put our hair down in those mop heads, and just been a great experience for everyone here. Live from the Palace, I'm Dave Gilbert. Back to you, Diane.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. If you didn't have a chance to see Paul McCartney in concert, you may still be able to at least hear the show. He's planning on putting out a live...
I love them all, you know. It was such a period, and it kind of happened alongside us happening. It was like the English beat boom and the black Motown boom. It was great. So we were good mates, you know, like Diana Ross, Supremes, and then we were kind of contemporaries happening together. It's great.
McCartney says a lot of the music he's playing now is somewhat reminiscent of the 1960s. He likes that, and it appears that his many fans like it too.
And the revolutions we're seeing just in Eastern Europe.
I think it's very exciting. To me, it seems like the 60s kicking in. That's my point of view on it. It's all the stuff that was said in the 60s, peace, love, democracy, freedom, a better world, all that stuff. It's finally kicked in. You know, the way I look at it, people like Gorbachev grew up with the 60s, like we all did. And I don't think you could be unaffected by it. And I think it's all kicking in now. I think you look at those people who are coming across the border, and a lot of them are wearing denim. You know, it's us coming across that border. I think it's very exciting. I think China's next.
Now that's interesting. I'd never thought about that. Think about this. The kids, the young people in their 40s and 50s who are taking over in the Eastern European nations were 20s. They were teenagers when these guys were singing. They heard the songs. How about the kids in Tiananmen Square? They're in their 20s. The men who lead that nation, the tyrants, are in their 80s. It is said that artists are about 3 decades ahead of their society in their time. 30 years, those kids in Tiananmen Square are going to be in their 50s. They're going to be the new leaders over there. And they're not going to forget what happened in Tiananmen Square. And perhaps Gorby did not forget the message of the Beatles when he was about 26. Been a long and interesting week, hasn't it? You have a nice, pleasant weekend. See you Monday. Good night, Diana.
Good night, Bill. Good night, everyone.
Whirlwind tour has Paul McCartney confused about just what city he's in. Finally, Paul McCartney obviously enjoyed performing for his Metro Detroit audiences last week. Either that or his global tour is taking its toll. So much so, last night at a concert in Pittsburgh, the first words out of his mouth were, "People of Detroit," and he caught himself, but you're not. People of Pittsburgh, you are. welcome. McCartney went ahead, of course, and played along like a pro. The audience was a little taken aback, but they still loved his concert. He will be performing there again tonight, at which time he'll remember where he is.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd like to be back in the metro area. That's our news for now. Night Court is next.
Thank you.